Thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Let's kick it off. Round two, y'all. So hello, I am Vince Steele, the political director at Go Public Schools. And welcome back to everyone that joined us last Tuesday for Districts 1 and 5. And welcome to everyone joining us this evening for the first time for Districts 3 and 7 candidate interviews. Tonight for District 3, we will interview 3 candidates running for Oakland Unified School Board: Maya Edgerly, Mark Hurdy, and Tyron Jordan. All right, a little bit about the process. So for this session, we will be interviewing candidates running for OUSD School Board District 3. We've extended an invite to all known and filed candidates. Thank you, Maya, Tyron, and Mark, for accepting our invite and recognizing the importance of participating in this process. Our community members will ask you a total of 4 questions. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer the first and last question and 3 minutes to answer questions 2 and 3. After the question is asked, a timer will begin to keep candidates within the allotted time. Please, candidates, as Jess said, speak slowly and clearly, as our translators want to capture every word that you're saying. After each candidate has answered all 4 questions, we will then take a brief 5-minute break. We'll go into candidate interviews for District 7 from that point, and bring back 1 additional question for each one of the candidates. All right. First candidate answering question 1 will be Maya Edgerly. Our second candidate will be Mark Hurdy. And finally, Tyron Jordan. And the first question of the night will be asked by Regina Brooks.
Can you hear me? I'm having some issues.
We can hear you.
Hi, my name is Regina Brooks Day, and I'm an OUSD educator, former alum of McClimates High School, aunt of alums, and I have nieces and nephews still in the Oakland Unified School District. My role has been with OUSD for 17 years. I'm here because I believe all students deserve the best education, support, and advocacy throughout their educational journey with the Oakland Unified School District. Thank you for joining for our endorsement process. Our first question, which you will have 2 minutes to answer: why are you running for school board? And what skills, experience, identities, and values do you bring?
Thank you, Regina, for for taking the time out to ask questions to speak with you. The reason why I'm running for school board for district particularly, because for one, I have been a longtime educator here in the Oakland area. I'm a 3rd-generation educator, and then also I've operated my very own nonprofit for disenfranchised youth here in the West Oakland area. And I have also been a part of that solution of creating and increasing college access here in the West Oakland area. This is a passion, and then also,
if we can pause for 1 second, because we can't hear you on the receiving end from many.
Can you hear me?
It's breaking up. So why don't we try doing this?
Okay.
How about you take yourself off of video, because that may help the flow. And then we're gonna have on our end, we're gonna start the 2-minute clock again, because it's really hard to hear you with the breakup. So let's try again.
Okay. And can you hear me now?
Now is much better. So why don't you just stay off video?
Okay, perfect. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Maya Edgerly, and the reason why I'm running for Oakland School Board is because for one, I'm a third generation educator here in the Oakland area. I have worked with disenfranchised students here in the West Oakland area for 6 years. And I've actually born and bred here in the West Oakland area. And I wanted to run because, for one, I've operated my own nonprofit for underserved students for 3 years. And also, I've also was a substitute teacher in the Oakland Unified School District as well. And upon college graduation, I've actually written, well publicized stories about education in the Oakland Tribune, and actually had the experience of these issues firsthand. And being a West Oakland resident, I was actually one of the families that actually lost their home due for wrongful home foreclosure. And I was actually a community activist and a community organizer with ACE, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. So I feel that with my skill set, I have the ability to collaborate with I have so many great relationships here in the community. And it's going to take everyone to come together to be able to combat against all the social ills in the destruction that we do see in the Oakland Unified School District. And I feel that I have what it takes, coming from a nonprofit background, and creative, different creative funding and creative flow, cash flow to sustain this great organization that I've created called the Onyx Scholars. And I feel that I have what it takes to bring fresh ideas and leadership to this role.
Hi, I'm Mark Hurdy. I'm a third generation Oakland Unified School District family member. My mother was a teacher in Oakland Unified School District. I taught in Oakland Unified School District, and my children, my wife and I both attended school in Oakland Unified School District. In fact, I met my wife, and when we were both classroom aides at Thornhill Elementary School back in the mid-1970s. I bring the identity of a senior person, somebody who's been around for a while, a father and a grandfather. I also have a lot of experience in the nonprofit world as well. I worked for the last 9 years in the nonprofit sector related to education, both in supporting teachers in the classroom, and then also currently my role is in a company called Education Superhighway, where we provide support to families and schools in terms of bringing internet access to help students learn both at school and now at home. So we're working very diligently to bridge the digital divide. I also have a certification in education finance from Georgetown University, so I have some experience and understanding of what it takes to supervise a budget and manage the administration as they work through the budget each year. And I think that's something that's important for Oakland, especially because of the challenges that we faced in the past in terms of, economic challenges and finance challenges. So I would bring some of that experience as well. And as a special education teacher, I also had a close relationship with a lot of students who struggled with school, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing something today to try to figure out a way to help change that trajectory for those students that do struggle in school.
Tyron, you're up. You're on mute, Tyron. You're muted.
And I'm running for school board because I would like to continue my commitment to public service. Currently, I'm a commissioner in the Public Library Advisory Commission, and I was appointed by Libby Schaaf about 2 years ago, and I'm now working on my second term. As a commissioner of the Public Library Advisory Commission, I serve primarily, or we as commissioners serve to advocate for the many programs that our public library offers to the community, such as after-school programs, such as literacy programs, computer literacy, tutoring, and not to mention free lunch programs during the summer for low-income students. On top of that, while I was working for the state of California, I was a union rep for my union, SEIU Local 1000. As a union rep, I fought hard and I worked on the campaign, the 15, the 15 minimum wage campaign. I worked to bring workers together to speak out for their rights in the workplace. In addition to being a union rep, I also, part of my community involvement involved being an active member of the 100 Black Men of the Bay Area, which is a mentoring program in which we mentor young African American males, primarily from elementary school level to the high school level. And on top of that, I believe I can bring my skills of communicating with a diverse range of people. I'm a very proactive listener. Now is a time for a person who thinks outside the box. I see this as an opportunity to not just reopen our schools, but to reinvent our schools. That's why I'm running for school board.
All right, thank you, candidates, for those answers. Our second question of the night will be asked by Carmen Beltran.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Carmen Beltran, and I'm a mom of 2 children who attend Oakland Unified School District schools. This spring, the pandemic took us by surprise, all of us. Leaders, teachers, students, parents, all worked to ensure that learning continued at home. My experience with distance learning personally was very different for each of my children. One of them received a very complete education, including what's specified in the IEP. The only thing that was different was the place. Instead of being at school, he was at home. It was the same number of hours, the same schedule, the same interaction as it had been when they were in person. My other child, it was a little different. He attends mainstream classes and small classes. In his case, his modifications and accommodations require in-person small groups. And due to what was happening with the pandemic, he received less hours of help from what he had been getting in school. And it was not extremely productive because he didn't have that hands-on help due to distance learning. Unfortunately, my experience has been one of many. There have been many other types of experiences in each of the families. So when we did the School After COVID survey, we listened to hundreds of families from Oakland. The message was clear. Distance learning this spring was inconsistent and deeply inequitable. The families that have historically been denied access to quality opportunities before the pandemic were marginalized by the same system as classes moved online. You'll have 3 minutes to answer this question. As a member of the school board, how will you improve the quality of distance learning during the pandemic through a system and policies, through a perspective of systems and policies?
Thank you for that question, Carmen. I spend my day, this is my day job. Oh, okay. This is my day job. I actually work in this field during the day when I work at Education Superhighway we are invested in working to solve some of the challenges that school districts are facing due to this pandemic and the need to do distance learning. What we're learning and what I would set policy around as a board member is that it's not just a question of having technology in place, but it's also a question of having professional development for our staff and teachers so that they are able to use that technology to effect. It's also about being thoughtful about whether or not every student needs to learn at home. I think one of the innovative ways that some school districts are handling this problem is that they are identifying students with specific types of needs and specific circumstances, and those students are coming to the classrooms at school and getting additional support and the technology support at the school that they wouldn't be able to have at home. I think it's important that we look at this through an equity lens. I think it's really, as Carmen mentioned in her statement previous to the question, it's really difficult to measure the impact of the inequity that happens in our district when we see situations like the one that she described for her second child, where that child didn't get the kind of access and support that the first child got, the other student with the IEP. I think it's important that the district the board set policies that establish what are the guidelines around who will be receiving the services that are necessary to support ongoing learning. I notice on this question, there's a flag that says something about 30% of students in District 3 meet ALA standards. I watched a class, online class at the virtual hub that the Oakland Reach has set up, and watched a teacher teaching what appeared to be first graders reading, teaching sight words and phonic instruction. I think that's the kind of thing that we need to really focus on, giving the teachers in our district the ability to have those types of relationships with their students, even though it's online, and making sure that there are small groups and that the students are getting the kind of attention that they need and deserve, and focused especially on reading. I think that's especially key for our younger students. Students who don't read at grade level by the time they're in third grade are far less likely to graduate from high school. And we need to make sure that all of our students in Oakland are reading at grade level. And this is a critical factor and something that also I think needs to be established by policy at the board level. Having a distinctive literacy program shaped around scientific method and making sure that we're doing the things that are necessary to really teach our kids how to read.
All right, Tyron.
Yes, I think as far as distance learning, I think one of the problems we will have to face to make sure that students don't fall through the cracks while learning from home. I think, one, we have to look at the type of home environment. We have to consider whether or not they have the support, especially students of color and special education students. Make sure that they have the support at home to really learn distantly. Distance learning is necessary right now, but it's not really a very good substitute for in-person learning. So because we need to make sure students do not fall through the cracks, I think it's necessary for the teachers, administrators to build a positive and active relationship between the parents and the school. We need constant check-ins to make sure that the students are learning. We need to not only look at the digital divide, which is very important. We just need to know and make sure that students are learning at home as they should, and whether they have the tools to learn, because not all students have the parents there who actually have the experience to homeschool. We also need to consider the fact, while distance learning, that opens up the issue of childcare for parents who are working full time, which are most these days. Also, if you consider teachers who have children who must learn from home. So we have to consider the child care issues. We have to consider, make sure students don't fall through the cracks, make sure that they're learning at a level that they would or beyond the level that they would in person in class, and make sure that they have the tools and the family support to learn in a distance learning environment. Or I think we need to make sure that we have a very active partnership between teachers, between administrators, and parents and the students in order to make this learning from distance learning work. All hands need to be on deck in order.
All right. Thank you. And Maya, you're up.
Yes, with distant learning, we're suddenly demanding that parents become instant experts at homeschooling, and with some parents, have little to no experience. So I believe it's really important as a board member that, and one thing that I want to ensure is that there are adequate systems that are in place to support both parents and the students during this transition of reopening public and charter schools. And this includes access to internet and laptops for each student, making sure that there is ongoing technical support for both teachers and the families involved. Because again, we want to make sure in this COVID age that we're producing student-centered solutions and magnifying student achievement. And also, I just want to make sure that what will help move this forward is that I want to make sure that we basically provide financial solutions and making best use of just making sure that we have all the funding that we need to have to create a proactive technology plan for both students and parents during this time. And then also, I want to ensure policies that prioritize student access and also safety during this COVID era as well. And one other way that we can improve the quality of distant learning during this pandemic is really making sure that the families and also, again, the students' voices are magnifying, making sure that after that we go through this experimenting phase of this hybrid learning phase, that as board members in moving forward with the board, making sure that
Maya, if you can hear me, I think you dropped out.
and I've worked with, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. But I just want to just let everyone know that with my experience working in the nonprofit industry, that I've created a STEM day and collaborate with Marriott College and actually produce a STEM day that created access and resource for for low-income students and families here in the Oakland area.
Before we move on, Maya, it might be helpful if you log off and then call in from your phone, because we were able to hear you, but you were breaking up a little bit. So it might be better to just call in by phone.
Okay, I will do that now.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Yanita. We're going to move forward to our next question of the night. Brian Arroyo is up to ask our third question.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Arroyo. I am an OUSD graduate and I am currently enrolled at San Francisco State. University has been a struggle for me. I feel like I am not as prepared as my peers, especially my white peers. I have experienced firsthand the huge gap in the quality of my education in comparison to the education that others that don't look like me receive. Our education system has failed Black and brown families for generations. As a district, our decisions, policies, and practices have perpetuated inequities and are producing similar results. We haven't seen a drastic change. Oakland is ready for a bold, courageous change. For example, last month, the board made a bold decision to dismantle the police force within the district. You will have 3 minutes to answer the following question. What bold moves will you make on the school board to disrupt racial inequities on a systemic level? How far will you go in the name of equity and centering the needs of historically marginalized families? Give concrete examples in your response, please.
Tyron, you're up first.
Yes, that's a very good question. I think with one of the problems with racial inequalities is a lack of cultural awareness among teachers, among administrators, among staff members. I think when you look at the student body, OUSD, you will notice a majority of the students are students of color. And a very small minority, a very small percentage of the teachers, the leadership, those in the leadership position, administrators, are people of color. I think it's important to have teachers who reflect the diversity and the cultural diversity of the student body. And I think that will help bring cultural sensibilities and help to address some of the racial inequality and inequities. And also I would suggest we need to have a recruiting system in place to recruit future students of color, starting at middle school, recruiting from high schools, and even recruiting from historically Black or historically Black colleges, because I think it's important to have, for a student of color, to have teachers and instructors and administrators that look like them, that can relate to their background, that does not rely on biases, that will at least try to have high expectations for students of color. And I think, as hard as it may be, I think there need to be a serious discussion of race in our schools. An uncomfortable discussion. Some people may feel hurt, some people may feel guilty, but if we're honest with each other, we can address some of these inequalities, help close the academic gap. And I would say students should be involved in such a conversation, very actively involved in the conversation. Parents should be involved in the conversation, and obviously teachers and staff members should be involved in this conversation. So I would just start first with having teachers, recruiting teachers, retaining teachers who look like the student body.
All right, thank you, Tyron.
You're welcome.
Maya, I believe you're back. Are you there with us, Maya? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start the clock and you can go. All right. Maya, you can go now.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Maya. Can you make sure that you're unmuted? You are. Okay.
My guess is she's calling on a phone with the audio, and so we need to unmute the phone audio. Oh, folks can hear.
We can all hear her.
Oh, great.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
Okay.
Maya, why don't you start from the beginning for us?
Okay, will do. So as a school board member representing District 3, it's important to disrupt racial inequalities. And And as you all may know, with McClimates, McClimates is one of those stories that that's near and dear to my heart. And to hear that there's cancer cases amongst our students, and most of them are African American, and that's something that as a school board member I will take into great consideration, making sure that there are policies and there is allocated funding being able, and bonds going towards, you know, rebuilding McClimates and making it an equitable school where proud District 3 students are proud to go to, you know, to attend. And I just feel that with the numbers, given the facts, with the stats and data, that a lot of students here in District 3 have left our schools.
Maya, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're still having trouble hearing you. I think you need to unmute your original audio.
Okay.
We can hear her fine.
I think it's that some.
You go to English and select English and then go to mute original. Everybody needs to do that. Then you can hear her. Because I can hear her. So we need to go to the translation bottom, select English, and then go to unmute original audio. So we can hear
that works fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can hear her.
Once you do that, you can hear. I can hear.
Okay. And then also, I do want to also add in about McClimates, and with the Racial Equality Act. It's a great example of the racial equality that we see here in District 3 and in the Oakland Unified School District as a whole. And given the fact that I come from a background that and come from the West Oakland community, I know what it takes to have those difficult conversations about race and about racial equality. And then also, I also I'm a proactive candidate, and I believe that using my experience as being a journalist and being able to expose inequalities in the district instead of sweeping them under the rug, I'll be a candidate that would not sweep the racism under the rug. And I would use, you know, town hall meetings and definitely take into consideration the voice of those who are disenfranchised with me, those students that I've worked with for those 6 years. And I will definitely, as a candidate, will be able to make those bold decisions and make those bold moves. And also, I'll be more than willing as a candidate to work with student leaders. I feel like that's something, I feel that their voices is what's going to drive this movement that we're seeing in what COVID has brought into life, this racial uproar that we're seeing right now. And I'm willing as a candidate and having the background being the community organizer and having those relationships, collaborating with different activists and stakeholders and community leaders, I feel that I will be able to make those bold moves in Oakland Unified School District.
Thank you, Brian, for this question. And I think I want to first say I agree 100% with both Tyron and Maya, the things that they've said. I specifically think that the need for Black and brown teachers, and I think especially Black and brown male teachers in the school district, is extremely important. And I think being willing to be open to the conversations around race are also incredibly important as far as the school board. I would highlight the thing that I think that the board could do to make a difference here, which is start by establishing a policy around finance that would allow us to see per pupil spending at each school site in the district so that we can see where there's disequity. I think one of the things that's a challenge is that while there are many attempts to try to balance the way we spend our resources in the district, we don't really have a clear picture of how that's happening. And in some cases, we're spending as much money on providing support and services for students who live in high income communities and may not need those kinds of resources to be successful. I think we need to look beyond the broad finance levels that we do for schools and funding schools at a school level, and look at what we're actually spending per pupil. And I think that's an important distinction. I also think that it's important that we look at how salaries factor into that. Sometimes the salaries for different administrators can be factored into the school's budgets. And I think those those we need to be able to tease out what money is actually being spent on students and in students' learning experiences. So as a board, I would establish a policy that says we need to see our budget at a per pupil spending level. And then we need to be willing to make the bolder moves to say these schools need to have a higher level of spending per pupil than some of the schools that have traditionally received more money, so that we can disrupt that inequity that's happened over the years and begin to put ourselves back on a path towards treating all students with a level of equity.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, candidates. Appreciate everyone in here for dealing with our technical issues that we're having. So appreciate your patience, all of you. Our fourth and final question of the night for District 3 candidates will be read by Sarah Song.
Hi, my name is Sarah Song, and I am an Oakland teacher at Madison Park Primary. Growing up, I attended both public and charter schools at the discretion of my parents, who regularly researched and sought out the best quality schools for me and my siblings. Now, as a district teacher, I hope that our leaders will uphold and trust our parents' decisions and sending their students to the schools they feel can best provide for their children. As a board member, you'll be charged with making decisions about all public students in both district and charter schools. We need leaders who will boldly set aside politics to focus on all students in Oakland. The superintendent has articulated a vision for the district that builds bridges across district and charter public schools. The Community of Schools policy is an example of bringing this vision to life by ensuring we think holistically when making decisions about academics, finances, school facilities, enrollment, and transportation. You will have 2 minutes to answer this question. How will you ensure that students in both district and charter public schools have access to a quality education?
Yes.
Maya, you're going to be first up.
Oh, got it. As a prospective school board member, I feel that, I do agree with, I will collaborate and move forward with the superintendent, and she has my full support. And I feel that each student and parent deserves the right, to choose the public and charter school that best fits their educational needs. That was specified earlier. And it is the school board's responsibility to make sure a quality education is available in which area the parent chooses. And I believe it's just important that, that parents have the power and the right to choose. And I just wanted to just, as a candidate, I just want to make sure that what I can bring to the table is that I can make sure that I will make sound financial decisions, providing parents with quality resources, and supporting and educating their children. And one thing that I could bring to the table is that the school board, we do need to develop relationships and incorporate, private sponsorships as well. But one thing that I want to ensure is that both districts and charter schools, do have access to a quality education. Is and I'm sorry, let me just rephrase that. And I just want to just let everyone know that I do support their superintendent and her vision in the Oakland Unified School Board's vision. And I believe that, all students, I'm a big advocate for student achievement and in doing whatever it takes to make sure that students are able to, to have a quality education in District 3. And also, and as far as the charter public schools are concerned, I feel that, again, parents do, if as far as charter schools are concerned, public schools, I want to make sure that facilities are available for those charter schools. Because at the end of the day, Oakland 3 district school students, they are attending charter schools. And I just want to make sure that everyone has an equitable education for all District 3 students. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Maya. I think we need to make sure that we're focused on providing a quality education for every child, whether they're attending the district-run school or the charter school. Those two situations, those choices that parents need to make, need to hold equal high-level standards for the level of teaching and learning that goes on in those schools. I come back to the idea that reading and literacy are critical and foundational skills for education across the spectrum of all the subjects that you study through your educational career. And I think one of the things that I would establish immediately as a board member would be a policy that guides the superintendent and the administration to develop a reading program, a structured phonics-based reading program that addresses the biggest challenge that Oakland's facing, with less than a third of our students read at grade level. And those are table stakes for an educational system. And all students in this district need to have the ability to read. And so I would say that we would hold the charter schools accountable to the same standards that we would be holding our administration in the district schools to, and that we would expect that same kind of outcome in the charter schools, and that charter renewals would be based on the academic achievement that the students were able to demonstrate in their experience at those schools as well. Not having a choice is not having power, and I think it's important that we give parents a choice about the kinds of schools that they choose for their children, and that's how we empower people from all communities to be able to have access to the kind of education that their children should have. So I'm starting with the idea that we need to do this for all students in Oakland. Every child should read at grade level, and parents should have a choice to choose a school where that's going to happen.
Tyron, you're up.
Yes. Well, I think for too many years and too long, charter schools and non-charter schools, they've just been butting heads for years. But to me, constantly butting heads for year after year after year, to me, that's a complete waste of time, a waste of talent, and I think a waste of resources. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. Pro-charter, whether we want pro-charter or anti-charter. At the end of the day, we want all students to be able to have the tools to achieve. We need to set the bar, the academic bar high, regardless of school. And I think the important thing to do, a necessary thing to do, is to have an active working relationship between district schools and charter schools. They need to come together. I think it's better to work together, charters and non-charters, and to work against each other. It seems to me since the early 2000s, there's always been kind of this narrative to put all the blame on charter schools when a certain level of achievement isn't reached at the district school. But to me, the blame game, I think the community in general, they're tired of the blame game. They want, at the end of the day, they just want their kids to have the best education, to have the same tools as those in the hills or the flatlands, where zip code should not determine what kind of education one receives. So I think it's time to put all the blame games and talking over each other, time to put that aside, especially now, more now than ever.
All right, candidates, thank you all. Appreciate your input.